Hello, everyone. Morning, good afternoon. I think we have most of the people joined in. So it's a pleasure to have you all gathered up today for this presentation titled AI Trends Driving Agility and Efficiency in the Enterprises Tomorrow. In today's session, we'll talk about the must-know trends that will define where enterprise AI is headed next. We appreciate you having taken the time of your precious morning to be here, and we are hoping that in the next 45 minutes would be interesting and probably relevant for you. My name is Minosh Salam, and I head DataQraft as the Director of Business and Strategy. With me, I have Umut Şatir. I'm sorry, I won't attempt to try pronouncing the last name. She's the senior sales engineer at Dataiku, who's going to lead us through the key topic and the demonstration of the application. Everyday AI, I think we are overwhelmed with AI, though even we don't know about it. So there's no doubt that AI is changing the way business operates, and we may call it advanced analytics, data science, machine learning. It's everywhere. It's making a radical impact on our everyday lives. Computers are now understanding patterns in our everyday behaviors and are making customized recommendations and predictions. Things like Alexa, Google Maps, the online bookings which have been doing through Noon or Amazon, they're all powered by data science and AI. Things like credit card fraud detection based on your spending habits and locations, customized movies and show predictions, and all major streaming services like Netflix and so on, or automated facial recognition and tagging, which happens on the day-to-day social media, etc., are all examples of how data science have changed us. One thing is clear, that data and science is making a huge impact for those organizations that are able to embrace some of these technologies. So if you look at the volume or the magnitude or the explosion of AI, the key to success is being able to, for this organization to be able to obtain, manage, and process large amounts of data. Now, the branches of AI, including machine learning, computer vision, and NLP, have, if you look at the last 5 to 7 years, there's been a stupendous growth. The rapid development of this technology was a result of many things which are happening in the background, like, for example, computation power, the memory, the GPUs, the way graphic videos are processed, and so on. However, these algorithms and data are growing in complexity, which requires more and more computational power than ever before. I mean, just to give you an example, for example, an autonomous vehicle, which is kind of talked about quite a lot these days, can on an average have over a petabyte of data per month if operated only for 4 hours a day. Now, that's the kind of volume. So now storing, processing, and learning from this data is not possible on regular consumer-grade hardware. In fact, on such as applications require high HPCs, which is primarily high-performance computing platforms, or they're also known as supercomputers, which are specialized machines that are at an aggregate of high-performance processing, memories units, and storage units. Now, what you see on the left is what I'm referring from a government website. Now, this is interesting, is the initial setup to understand the state of AI infrastructure in countries, and I've kind of put across for different countries. So the data is represented, is a result of the survey which was carried out over 40, 50 government organizations, private and also academic entities. And the survey covered things like the hardware specification which is used for the application, the CPU count specification, the GPU count, total systems memory, and other specifications. And they also used certain benchmarks to measure performance, whether it is physically located in the country, how the entities were using the supercomputers, the problems the systems were solving, and whether it is being used for the general community or not. So now storing, processing, and learning from this data is not possible on regular consumer-grade hardware. In fact, on such as applications require high HPCs, which is primarily high performance computing platforms, or they're also known as supercomputers, which are specialized machines that are at an aggregate of high performance processing memories units and storage units. Now, what you see on the left is what I'm referring from a government website. Now, this is interesting. Is the initial setup to understand the state of AI infrastructure in countries, and I've kind of put across for different countries. So the data is represented is a result of the survey which was carried out over 40, 50 government organizations, private and also academic entities, and the survey covered things like the hardware specification which is used for the application, the CPU count specification, the GPU count, total systems memory, and other specifications. And they also used certain benchmarks to measure performance, whether it is physically located in the country, how the entities were using the supercomputers, the problems the systems were solving, and whether it is being used for the general community or not. And if you look at, on the left, which is kind of relevant for the audience here, you can see that some of the Middle Eastern countries are kind of ahead of the game. What I was talking about is the explosion of AI and the kind of investments which have been made by the government of different countries. And what you can see is huge volumes of investments have been made by some of the Middle Eastern countries. So you can see Saudi Arabia, UAE are on top of the list. And like I was saying before, for people who probably haven't seen my screen earlier, there was a lot of parameters and specifications and benchmarks which are used to arrive at this. Now, these are expensive infrastructure which is built at a national level. So you may ask, what is in it for me as an organization? However, there are enterprise and organizations now. You can have a so-called supercomputer for a little more than $100,000. That's where it is scaling down to you, and that's where the volumes are coming in, and that's where you're seeing organizations like, for example, NVIDIA, where they launched the DGX-1, which is a purpose-built system for deep learning with fully integrated hardware and software that can be easily deployed by any of these organizations. Its performance significantly accelerates time learning to create a deep learning supercomputer in a box. So that's what an organization or an enterprise can do. And so what I'm trying to show you is at a global, at a national level, but even at the enterprise, the power of computing is fueling the growth of AI and its applications within the organization. So like what Sundar Pichai is saying, it's probably the most important thing humanity has ever worked on. So there's a lot of things in store for us. I'm hoping that you can see my next screen too. If not, you can just signal me.
We are seeing.
Great. So how are the investments being made by organizations today? I've got some stats here in terms of how mid to large organizations are looking at it. There's a large percentage, like 43%, who are willing to or are investing. There's a big shift in CIOs looking at from the last couple of years in terms of spending on big data. There's more investments being made by mid to large enterprises in AI-based automation. And if you look at the region, 60% of META, which is primarily Middle East, Turkey, and Africa, organizations are willing to invest in AI in the next 12 to 18 months. And this is all coming out of the report. So if you look at from some of these sectors, the largest economic gains comes from AI will come in mature sectors where the potential of AI is high. For example, finance, energy, healthcare, travel, retail. Probably I missed out a couple of them, but it is growing in almost every industry, including academics, universities, education, and so on. For example, in the oil and gas or energy sector, industries are using modeling software and algorithms to support its operations across upstream and downstream, and to understand supply and demand for oil. I mean, that's just one of the use cases, but there are many use cases besides that. Or in the logistics and transportation sector, organizations are deploying AI solutions for things like air traffic management, baggage handling, airplane boarding, etc., etc. And if you look at organizations in the tourism and hospitality sectors, they're using AI to predict tourist needs and to provide customized services to people who are coming into the country, and so on. And there are hundreds of use cases. For example, in healthcare, they are able to now predict risks associated with genetic related illnesses. So the kind of use cases around AI is quite a lot. And then there are many which cuts across different industries. Like, for example, you have AI-driven customer segmentation and clustering, which I think most of you are familiar with. And most consumer-driven organizations typically start with that. And as you get into specific, there are things like threat prevention, fraud analytics, intelligent process automation, price optimization, customer 360, inventory optimization, or demand forecasting, predictive maintenance. I mean, there's a lot of use cases around this. This is again some more stats around what's happening in the region. So some of the key takeaways here is the spending on AI in the META region again is will grow at 23%. This is last year's figure, surpassing for $540 million. And we see more and more organization and digital transformation, which is primarily a lot of it is driven by data and AI, and you'll see more and more investments happening in that area. I mean, we are all coming out of the COVID era now, though we still have challenges. But this is what Satya Nadella, the CEO of Microsoft, is saying, is that the transformation, which was supposed to happen in 2 months, has happened in the last. So it happened in 2 years, has happened in the last 2 months, and this is kind of accelerated. So a lot of investments have been made in terms of putting in the data infrastructure for it, for machine learning, artificial intelligence, and so on. So from that context, we have kind of accelerated the advancement in technology into enterprises, and we are kind of speeding up that. So that's going to have a lot of benefits to the organization. And we see that organizations are at different stages as far as the data lifecycle is. We have organizations at the initial stage, some organizations who are halfway through, or have got some infrastructure ready, and then organizations who are completely ready to go full-fledged and harness the capabilities of AI. So if you look at, what I'm showing you is those three blocks. Is at the first stage, these are organizations who would look at their first step towards analytics in terms of data advisory and BI, and then as they mature a little more, you have challenges like lack of standardization, data quality, data which are siloed between different departments or units. And that's where solutions like data integration, data storage, data management comes into play. And then as organizations mature more, we call them data ready, where we are looking at self-service data managed, and it's highly democratized, which means data is available to the last mile as a user. And that's when we get into more of getting into prescriptive and predictive models and using the complete capabilities of AI ML. And those bars, what you're seeing is organizations in the Middle East compared to some of the countries in Asia, how much ready we are. So there's a lot of investments coming out, being made here. This is just out of the CFO summit, which was which happened last year. So the figures would have changed a little bit, but I think it's only for the better. A little bit about the organization whom I represent. So at DataQraft, we are attempting to bring in best-in-class data and advanced analytics platforms and solutions to help organizations derive deeper and faster insights from varied and complex data sources. Now, we've been doing this for the past 5 years. We've done over 100 projects. If you look at our footprint, we are present in across 6 cities in 3 countries. We got a good team of over 50 professionals, ranging from data architects, data scientists, big data experts, engineers, analysts, developers, and so on. And we cannot do this with a singular platform or applications. So what we have done is we have blended and adopted and aligned with some of the leading technology partners and players like Snowflake, MicroStrategy, Informatica, Click, and some of those what you see on the screen, and of course Dataiku, where we will be getting into deeper discussions today. A little more of what we do from our technology stand and stack. So what we are trying to do is we are bridging the gap between the organization's data strategy and the business strategy, so that the data drives decision making across the entire value chain of the organization. And this is what we've been seeing. There's a huge disconnect between the IT and the business units, and we are trying to bridge that gap there. So we eventually help organizations manage the full data and analytics lifecycle, right from data integration, storage, migration, data management to business intelligence, and eventually, we try to harness the power of machine learning and AI. The key is to eventually bringing value and insights to the business. So that is it from my side. So in today's session, we'll talk about the must-know trends that will define where enterprise AI is headed next. So what we'll discuss in detail is things like democratized data quality, AI governance, self-service analytics, MLOps, responsible AI, and edge computing. And we'll not just be talking, but we have a little in the second part of the webinar, we'll showcase the platform capabilities with a live demo. We seem to have quite a lot of participants around the region. And Umut, before I hand over the screen to you, some minor notes. We're just keeping all the attendees on mute during the session so that we don't have any interruptions. We'll definitely entertain questions, and you can post them on the Q&A session. Q&A. I think there is a Q button on the right-hand side of the screen, so you can put in your little questions there, and then we could address it towards the end of the sessions. I also have some senior folks from Dataiku on the call today. Suvir, I think I have Julia, Rohit, and Maged. And lastly, I encourage you to go full screen so that the visuals have the clarity you require. I won't speak more. Umut, I think you could take it over from here.
Thank you. I'm trying to share my screen. Can you stop sharing first? Maybe that's why it stops me.
Absolutely. I will do that right away.
Okay. Yes.
Umut, you're good to go.
Yes. I believe you can see mine now.
Yeah, almost there.
Okay, here, very good.
Yeah, looks good.
Perfect. Perfect. Thank you, Minosh. Hello, everyone. So this is Umut Şatir Gürbüz speaking. I'm a senior sales engineer working at Dataiku. Working in this area around 20 years now. So I started working in data science, what we call data mining those days, as a trainer. And in time, I became a consultant and implemented data science project on various industries and various different use cases. And for the last 15 years, I'm working as a pre-sales. Today, in my presentation, which will be around 30 minutes, I will try to talk about 7 trends in AI and how, as Dataiku, with our platform DSS, which is Data Science Studio, in short, we are calling it DSS, and I will call it DSS during my presentation, how we are responding to those trends. So I'm starting from trend 1. First of all, actually, Minosh also talked about this, how after the pandemic, agility became something important for us, and all the digital transformations speeded up. Instead of 2 years, how we see a lot of transformations in 2 months, same level of transformations. So this also affect our area in AI and data and AI area. We are seeing one of the biggest trend is trying to scale up. So when you look at 10 years or 15 years ago, we were talking about what is AI and how companies can consume AI and data actually. But today in 2021, we are talking about how a company can implement an AI project's first prototype in 6 to 8 weeks. So agility is one of the biggest trends in this area. We are not trying to use AI now in our companies. We are trying to implement tens of projects in a year. So that's what we are trying to achieve. And for this, there are three main capabilities organizations need. The first one is collaboration, because what we are seeing in organizations, we don't have a data scientist or a data persona anymore, but we have cross-functional data science or data and AI teams, starting from preparing the data, getting responsibility of the data, who are data stewards, data engineers, quality analysts. We are seeing business users and research analysts and data analysts. We are seeing for the algorithm science, still data scientists are there, but they are also working very close side by side with IT DevOps team, and we are calling it like MLOps. So these cross-functional teams trying to develop a model and taking the first prototype into live, not in 6 months anymore, but we are trying to make it like 6 weeks to 8 weeks. We said one of the key aspects or elements that we are looking in this area, platforms, is collaboration. The second is reusability. So it is very important to really being able to reuse our analytical assets. These analytical assets are the data, for example, the data sets that we develop for a previous project, we want to reuse it for future projects. That's why we are talking a lot about data catalogs or feature stores today, or reusability of our projects or data preparation pipelines or a modeling algorithm. So reusability together with collaboration is an important aspect to provide the agility in this area. And the other thing is being able to access your tools online. So like the Dataiku DSS kind of platforms that doesn't require any installation, desktop installation, that you can just access from a browser, helped a lot in, for example, in the pandemic situation. So everybody without any outage continue to do their analysis from wherever they are. So these are accessibility, reusability, and governance are key aspect to this agility trend. What else? Another trend is having a true self-service analytics. What we mean with that is we are trying to enable the entire organization to have a data literacy and have the correct tools that they can access data and get value from it. The response of the platforms like Dataiku DSS for this requirement is providing no-code, low-code, and high-code environments from data access, data preparation, modeling, and operationalization. So, for example, as I said, now I am starting from the presentation, but I will also showcase you our technology. So I will also show you the screens. But what we are trying to aim, like platforms like the Dataiku DSS, that we are providing, if you can easily access any data source without writing any code, you can prepare your data from visual interface, but also if you are preferring to code, you can still have access to Python or Scala kind of technologies. For modeling, auto AI is a very important trend that we are all talking about it, but for maybe 80% of projects, auto AI might be a good response. But first, sometimes we are having first of a kind projects, or we want to really customize our algorithms, or we don't want to have any black box and really have full control on our algorithms. For those kind of requirements, we are also providing low code or high code alternatives to modeling. And also through self-service analytics provides you to being able to deploy your models quickly without being dependent to any party. Also, this is an important aspect in here. So we talk about self-service analytics, and as I said, we are talking a lot about auto AI, for example, but another key trend is about democratization of data quality. So we were already hearing democratization of data, democratization of AI, but there was some concept that we were missing to talk about. This was one, governance, and second, quality. Data governance and data quality requirements and democratization of data quality is some of the latest trends that we started to talk about. Why? Because when we are talking about self-service analytics, we are providing tools like visual data exploration or auto AI, and we are thinking that these tools will make business users or any user in an enterprise fully independent from other parties, and they can independently do their analysis. And if you don't democratize data quality, which means you don't provide tools to visually analyze the quality of your data and make it better, or if you don't provide a data catalog with high quality data to those business users, even if they have some auto AI or self-service analytics capabilities, they cannot consume it 100%. So to get best from those kind of self-service analytics or auto AI kind of features, this data quality democratization is a must. And the response for, as I said, this requirement, DSS is providing data catalogs. So whenever you are working on a project, your data is being stored in a catalog with its metadata, and you can tag it. And for your future projects, now you have a data catalog full of high quality, ready to analyze data sources coming from previous projects, if you have that privilege to see that, of course. So you can use them for your next project. And also, another response to this requirement is to have visually data preparation interfaces, which I will show you our explore and prepare interfaces, prepare recipe and explore interfaces, where you can manually, visually prepare your data. Another trend is MLOps. Actually, MLOps is not a new trend, but it's getting more and more critical today because of actually the first item that we talk about, agility. So if we are talking about agility, we should really solve the issue in here. And in the past, when we are seeing, before MLOps was part of our life, we were seeing that, for example, a model development or AI project development was taking around 3 months, and deployment was taking another 3 months. But now we started talking about MLOps, and in MLOps we first talked about how to deploy our model and get operationalized on real time or in an offline batch manner. Then in time we talked about how we can automatically retrain or automatically evaluate our models and retrain and redeploy without any human touch if it is required. So we talked about continuous learning. And now we are talking more and more about model monitoring because we already progressed in getting our models operationalized. Now we are able to do that. And now we have more time because that operationalization steps are more and more automized. And when you look at some research reports, people are saying that in some reports it's being said that one model requires 20 man days a year for maintain it, for the model ops cycle. So when you're automating that process, for each model you are saving 20 days. And now with that 20 days, we have more time to monitor what's already there and automated. And from that manner, which I will also talk in another trend, model monitoring also get much more important. We are looking for different aspects like bias or drift. We will take a look. So this MLOps became even more critical. And you will see that on the right hand bottom corner, you will see introducing MLOps ebook. You can access it also from Dataiku's website. So this is also, as Dataiku, we are trying to provide this kind of high quality content in data and AI, and with our ebooks and our books. So this is one of the good resources just I wanted to put for you. If you are interested in this topic, if you want to see in more details, you can take a look at this MLOps ebook and book. What is another trend? Another trend is edge computing, especially when we started talking about IoT and when we had the technology of IoT and we had been able to do image processing kind of use cases on, for example, on edge. What we mean in edge, for example, on video, the camera infrastructure. We want to do object detection, but for example, our camera is in a factory floor which doesn't have a good access to the internet, and this kind of data is very heavy actually. So, or maybe even it's not a network problem, but maybe it's just a security problem. That data is so confidential and I don't want to take it to anywhere in the cloud, and I want to be able to just store it on the edge itself. So there are these kind of use cases. As I said, most of the key initiators are security or network lack of having a connectivity for those kind of use cases. And also another key requirement is having a heavy data that you don't want to carry over the network. For this kind of use cases, edge computing is one of the important trends that we are seeing more and more every day, especially in manufacturing kind of or retail kind of industries where you want to monitor your store or your factory. For example, for employee safety, especially after pandemic. Here, our main aim is to really being able to deploy your models that you developed on your central platform, being flexibly able to deploy it to the edge itself. So the openness of the platform, like the Dataiku DSS, is really important for those kind of use cases. I think I'm at one of the latest trends. I should have one more. As I said, after MLOps, now we are able to automate the life cycle itself, and we have more time to monitor our results and predictions. And especially in data and AI, what we are trying to do is our raw material is data that is produced by human or by processes. And our AI models or machine learning models, yes, they are identifying a logic and creating an estimation logic, but based on the data created. And with that data, we don't always have some control. So it's, as I said, it is being created by a process maybe. And we saw a lot of implications about that sometimes our data might be biased. Sometimes our data might be only representing some part of the demographical population. So we as people who are developing AI and machine learning models have the responsibility to also monitor what the results are, and our AI models are really developing ethical results or balanced results for all demographical segments. So from that sense, we started to talk about responsible AI. And for a while, we were talking about what is responsible AI, how we will deploy it. But now we are on the next stage and we are trying to implement it. And maybe soon we will see regulations around that. So being able to explain our predictions, sorry for that, and really making sure that our models are fair is a key aspect. And finally, cloud, especially after the pandemic, became even more important and it became the new normal. Of course, it's not possible for every country, for every industry to move all kind of data to the cloud at the moment, but that is a fact that we need to be cloud ready. So the platforms, the architectures that we are designing at the moment should be cloud enabled. So it should be possible for you to move some kind of use cases, only maybe some of your use cases, to cloud, some of them to be on-prem, and to really being able to develop hybrid data architectures. This is also another key aspect. And Dataiku DSS is, from that perspective, is a fully hybrid. You can run on-prem, you can run on any cloud provider, in Azure, in AWS, soon in also Google. You can put your, you can install and design your architecture on cloud or on-prem or hybrid. So before moving to the demo, I want to talk also about our company, Dataiku. We have been founded at 2013, and now we are 8 years old company, but we have more than 450 customers. And really, I really care about this ratio. We have more than 450 customers, but we have 45,000 users in those customers. When you look at the ratio, it is around more than 100 or 100 users per customer. And we talk about democratization of data quality, self-service analytics. So we are talking about democratization of access to data and data literacy, getting companies enabled with data literacy. So our customers are pioneering on this trend when you look at our ratios. We are in Middle East and Africa since 2020 February. Actually, we are here around 19 months, but we already have more than 30 customers, and many of them are really large-scale customers using our platform. We are being seen as the leader for the last 2 consecutive years by Gartner. But one more important thing is when you look at the right-hand side, because today as consumers, we usually want to learn what our peers say about the product. So when you look at the right-hand side in the peer recognition, you will see that our users are giving Dataiku DSS platform 4.8/5. And with that number, we are the customer choice of Gartner's Peer Insights report. Since there might be attendants here who are just new to this field and want to learn about in which industries, what kind of use cases are being implemented, that's why I also wanted to put this slide. So these are the Dataiku customers on different industries doing different kind of use cases. Some of them are trying to understand their customers better and who are the most profitable customers and how they can increase their revenue, or how they can keep them with retention models. Some of them looking more on the operational side of this and trying to understand how I can operate with excellence and decrease my costs in operational efficiency. How can I increase my operational efficiency? And when you look at them, some of them are more on the risk side, and how I can detect the risks or fraud earlier before something bad happens. So there are different kind of use cases on different industries based on these 3 pillars. So now I will talk about the Dataiku DSS interface. I have very limited time. I will try to showcase you just some screens. But if you want to have a more detailed information, you can also walk through our website and you can watch a quick video demo of our Dataiku DSS, or you can just simply reach out to us for a more detailed demo. Now I just moved to my demo interface. I hope you can still see my screen. Please give me a heads up if there's any problem. In the Dataiku DSS, when you land to our homepage, you will see different projects. We talked about collaboration, and projects is a key aspect, key entity on this collaboration, because project is the entity that we have all our analytical assets. We have the metadata of our project, like collaborators, the tags, the explanation and documentation of our project, and also the timeline, the activities, metrics around our project. When you look at the central part of the screen, you will see there is a flow, and you will see different analytical assets summary. I will just go to the flow, because flow is the visual summary of what we already have on our project. And you can see end-to-end pipeline here as a visual representation called flow. And that flow has a visual grammar, actually, that you can see. For example, when you look at the squares, these squares are different data sources. You can access to any data source, by the way, with Dataiku DSS. So from data source perspective, this is not a limited or dependent platform. You can access to all open data sources with our connectors that is already provided to you. But if you cannot find the connector that you need, you can just simply write it with open source, because this platform supports open source. As I said, squares are the data sources. So you see I'm having two different data sources here, and I'm joining them, and then I'm preparing it. And finally, I'm modeling it. And this scenario is about high lifetime value modeling. We are trying to understand, which I will just walk you through the data. We have customers, and we have their website movements and patterns, and also the purchases. And we are trying to understand who are our high value customers. These yellow, these circles are our data preparation recipes. We call them recipes. The yellow ones are the visual ones. So these are the ones that I prepare from visual interface, which we talk a lot about data quality democratization. This is how you can democratize data quality also. You can just give a visual interface to prepare and increase the quality of your data. But in Dataiku DSS, it is also possible to have code recipes for data preparation and also for modeling, and also data access with Python, R, Scala, SQL, the scripting language you prefer. You can prepare or your model your data. And this this diamond is also a model. Here you can see at the end of the cycle, at the end of the flow, we developed a classification model which is classifying high and low value customers. So I want to just show you the palette. As you see, we have visual recipes. These are all the recipes that you can prepare data without writing any code. And here you are seeing the different code recipes that you can just access. And also, if you are a coder, you can write your own plugin, or you can just simply install your plugin from our marketplace. Or you can, as I said, write a plugin for your coder teammates, and they can consume your plugins in the Dataiku DSS. Also, your flows, you can just divide your flows into, as you see here, zones. So this is a better representation. It's just a visual makeup of the flow, but it is really helping on large projects organize your flow in a much readable way. So now when I just access to one of my data sets, I'm coming into Explore screen. This screen is very powerful. As you see, when I just land onto the screen, I can see my columns and the values inside. Here, there's a green bar here, and you will see that some of them are fully green, which means that all the data is valid. But in some one, for example, in this country, we have a small proportion of gray, or we have a small proportion of red in revenue. This means that we have some invalid cases, or we have some missing cases. So you can just from the bar understand the quality of your data. For example, when I click on analyze, I can see that there are unknown cases here. So it says how many cases are valid, how many cases are invalid or empty. Just give me a very good summary quickly, and I can just get to know my data set pretty quickly. Here, when I see, for example, I can see that I have 52 empty rows. That's why I have this gray ratio, because 0.2 of my cases are missing. I can also simply take a summary, take a look at the summary of my fields in here. Also, when you look at the fields, you will see string, integer, for example, string but date unparsed, or string but this is a country, this is an IP address. So as you see, Dataiku DSS provides two different set of types. One is the storage type on the backend, but the second is the meaning that Dataiku DSS understands from the data. This is very important because when you are trying to prepare your data visually, Dataiku DSS will offer you a lot of different data preparation functionalities. Also in this, I will just take you to prepare recipe. That's why I'm not jumping more on this. But before leaving this interface, I want to show you that we have, for example, a charts tab in here. So you can usually take a look at the distribution of your fields, take a look at the two-way relationships in between your fields. So this is a good interface. For example, I have the revenue of my clients and price first item purchased field, and I see that there's a strong relationship in between. There is also another tab that you can easily add cards and do univariate analysis, bivariate analysis, which means the relationship between two fields, or you can have a correlation matrix and take a look at all your fields' relationship with your target variable with this kind of analysis. And when I look at the prepare recipe, I can see that I can visually prepare my data. So before talking about these steps, I want to talk about this. As you see here, this is IP address. And since this is IP address, for example, Dataiku DSS is offering me to resolve geo IP from this IP address. Or when there is a decimal, as you see, it is asking me if I want to round it to integer or process with a formula. So this or when it is a text, you can see the string functions here. So as you see, this meaning is pretty powerful for me, as it provides different convert to lowercase, uppercase kind of transformations in here. As my time is very limited, I'm not able to apply any preparations, but you can see that all the preparations have been done here. I can see as a flow, and I can see the result of that preparation after every step. Dataiku DSS is not is an visual orchestrator for you, so it can access to any of your data sources, and visually you can do this data preparation recipes, and whenever you want to execute it, actually you can make this execution. You can make Dataiku DSS push this execution to the data sources or your infrastructure. For example, like Snowflake or Cloudera or Hadoop or any database. So this is a good way of reducing your execution cost, actually, because every execution is a cost for us. So we don't want to carry large amount of data to Dataiku DSS and then try to process all of them on Dataiku DSS. Instead, we want to reduce that cost, and we are really trying to make you design your visual flows on Dataiku DSS, but simply push the execution to the infrastructure, so they will be prepared and get small, and your training data will be prepared and get to the Dataiku DSS, and now you can model it for prediction. Since my time is about to be over, I just want to show you the modeling part before I leave. Also, please warn me if I have 5 more minutes or if I need to close quickly. Here you can see now I have a customer data cleaned and prepared. Now I want to model this. When I want to model this, I just simply from the palette, I click to lab. Here you see my lab is already open. I can do this with the code notebook, which I also have predefined templates, or I can just do visual analysis. I can see the historical analysis that has been done on this data set. But here I just want to do some AutoML prediction. And for AutoML prediction, it asks me what is my target. I can select different kind of, so for example, I can do a high performance model, I can do deep learning, I can have more control over my algorithms. But now I want to just save the time, I want to do a quick prototype. And I can just simply click train because it understands that this is a classification problem, and from many algorithms, it already choose 2 of them for me. But also, instead of just clicking simply train, I can just take a look at the features in here. What is the train test partitioning ratio? What are the metrics already being chosen? How it will handle my features, which features I want to or I don't want to, that I can, for example, I can stop revenue here because I am already trying to predict a function of it. And I can use feature reduction. I can take a look at the algorithms it's selected for me, but I can also change. I can even add my algorithm. And then when I decide, I can just simply click train, and this one will train a model for me, and I will see the result of my session and how it's working right now. As you see, it already selected logistic regression and random forest for me and selected random forest as the winner. So I can just simply click and take a look at the details of my model, my decision tree. And whenever I want to use that tree, I can just simply deploy my model into my flow, and maybe just simply deploy a REST API from my model and start managing the MLOps lifecycle of my model again in Dataiku DSS. Before closing, my last comment. So Dataiku DSS is a platform from accessing your data, preparing your data, to modeling and taking your model into production and monitoring in the way that you like, in a visual interface or with a code, an interface for every other people that you can collaborate, and you can create your reusable assets here to have more agility for upcoming projects.
Great. I think, we just running out of time. We have 5 more minutes. Umut, I'm hoping that you were able to cover up as much as possible. I think time was limited, but I just want to open up the forum for any questions. I see a few questions coming up.
Yep.
We could look at those questions. Just a sec.
Yeah.
Probably I'll read the questions out for the sake of the audience. Can multiple team members work on the same model, and how to ensure that different versions of the flow is maintained?
Yes, so this is an important part of collaboration. Multiple team members may work on the same model, and each of them versions will be saved separately. So in Dataiku DSS, there is a versioning functionality, so they can see each other's version, and based on the evaluation criteria, they can decide on which one they want to go on live.
Great. Okay, I have another question here which says, do smartphones have the power to run the needed AI computation, or will it have it? Probably, I think this is coming from, a lot of democratization of data, which you talked about. So I think that's a valid question there, Umut.
Yeah, actually, I mean, this is a good question about edge computing, I believe. So this is a use case of edge computing. So some of the models, instead of taking all the data into the central point and score and give it back to a smartphone, it is possible to use a smartphone as an edge and run your model on your smartphone with the data you have, for example, user data of a mobile app. So this is a good use case for edge computing.
Right, great. Organizations are concerned about the accuracy of the models. Now, how can Dataiku help data scientists to ensure a higher level of accuracy?
Yeah, so accuracy have a lot of different measures. Dataiku DSS already have those visual interfaces for you to develop your models. And in those models, we have different accuracy parameters that you can use, like accuracy F1. There are many different area under curve, and many more. You can use some of those measures, but since Dataiku DSS is also offering open source support, for example, you might, for a special niche use case, you might want to have another accuracy parameter that you want to use. You can just write with your code. So the Dataiku DSS, first of all, offers you some ready parameters for model evaluation and a model evaluation recipe, actually, to evaluate your models, but also flexibility of open source to write your own evaluation parameters, and also gives you this continuous learning logic that you can fully automate that life cycle. Create that recipe to take a look at your model accuracy. If it is below some threshold, to trigger a new retraining workflow. And if it is above your expectation, you can automatically deploy it, operationalize it, or you can just receive an alarm or a message about that. So for all these automation functionalities for continuous development, Dataiku DSS is providing them. We are actually pretty strong on that area.
Great. I think I'll just try to combine a couple of questions here because I think we're running short of time. Look, but I mean, it's very dynamic. There's a lot of things happening out there, right? So, is there any limit to the data volume which Dataiku can handle? And there are new models and algorithms which are developed continuously. How do Dataiku kind of scale to meet some of these needs?
Yeah, so from the algorithms perspective, maybe I've passed too quickly. I don't know if you could able to catch it, but for example, in coding, in the Dataiku DSS provides you coding environments on Python, R. If there's a new algorithm, two PhD students just wrote last week, you can just get the code and start using it in Dataiku DSS. Or also in our Auto AI interface, you will see that there's a add your custom Python algorithm option. So you can write any custom algorithm with Python and add to Auto AI if you want to use and compete with other algorithms there. Or you can just go fully open source and develop your own model via notebooks. In terms of data, the data that you will use in Dataiku DSS affects the infrastructure that you will use. So you need to have a sizing based on the data volume that you will analyze on Dataiku DSS. But as I said, we strongly also recommend that using Dataiku DSS as a visual orchestrator that you will use as an interface, and you will design all your analytical end-to-end data pipeline as a logic, as a flow, and whenever possible, push the execution to your data sources or infrastructure to just reduce the cost of execution, the time, because speed is important for us, and reducing the resources. IT consuming the data infrastructure resources is important for us. So it is really advised to push it as much as possible. That's why Dataiku DSS is designed as a very open platform that can collaborate for multiple infrastructure engines, execution engines, and data sources.
Great. Yeah, I think we have run out of time. We probably may have to start wrapping up. I would like to kind of thank everyone who has joined in for the session today. We'll be having another one coming up in a month's time. So I'm sure there'll be a lot more questions, and probably would like to take a deeper look at some of the solutions, what we are providing. And we'll definitely give an opportunity to do that. So thank you, everyone. Suvir, is there any last note from your side?
Nothing from my end besides the fact of thank you everyone for joining. Umut, thank you so much. This is amazing. Minosh And team, thank you for organizing this together, and everyone who joined the call. Looking forward to talking to you. So what we'll do as an action, we will send you an email with all the links to whatever we have spoken about, so you can dive into the information more. And obviously, we'd like to get in touch with you for taking
Yeah,
things
Great.
further.
thank you for the
So thank you
questions
for that.
also. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye. Have a nice day.